Welcome to Helping You Thrive, a Banterra Bank podcast, which offers inspiration and information to help individuals, businesses, and communities to thrive. I'm Jennifer Spence, Director of Marketing for Banterra Bank, and I'm one of your co-hosts.
And I'm Ben Kraft, Commercial Officer at Banterra Bank and also a co-host. This is our first podcast of Helping You Thrive, something we are kicking off as part of Banterra's 50th anniversary celebration. We plan on providing a podcast each month.
Obviously, the best way to start a celebration is to hear from our President and CEO, Jeff May, regarding the journey of Banterra. We plan to discuss how we started, how we've grown, and what has made our company successful and what impact we have made. We will also be looking at the next 50 years of Banterra and banking as a whole. Welcome, Jeff.
Good morning. Glad to be here.
So, Jeff, I think I'm really going to enjoy this because I'm used to being in loan committee and having to answer questions from you. So now I get to turn the tables a little bit. And Jennifer told me that I have complete immunity and I can ask you anything I want.
I did not say that.
I'm not sure that's true, but go ahead.
All right. We'll see. But before we get into Banterra's story, Jeff, can you just share a little bit about your background and what led you to Banterra?
Okay. Well, that's a long time ago. It's all started. But back in 1977, when I was graduating high school, I got pulled out of class to think about, and was asked to work part-time as a evening bank teller at a little bank called First Community Bank. At that time, Don Nolan, who most people around Marion knows, was the president of the bank. Mm-hmm. So I said, sure. I wasn't going into banking. I was going to be, I think I was looking at engineering at the time. But after a while of working at the bank, I said, I'm going to change my major. So I did. Then I went on to Eastern Illinois from John A., and I was at the dorm and got a call from the FDIC asking me to interview for an internship job, which I did. Became an internship for the FDIC my senior year of college, which led to a full-time FDIC job starting back in 1980, 81, something like that. And I worked with the FDIC to 2002, and from 1990 to 2002, I was the field supervisor for Southern Illinois, or downstate Illinois, and Banterra Bank was in my portfolio bank, so I knew the folks at Banterra very, very well. And that year in 2002, the FDIC decided they needed me in Chicago more than they needed me in Marion, Illinois. And so 2 weeks later, I was working for Banterra. And that's how it all started.
Well, we're so glad that you stayed in Southern Illinois. You know, I don't know how many other banks have a president and CEO that has more than 20 years experience as a supervisor with the FDIC. And I think it's sort of a great strength for the bank to have. And also our chief banking officer, Christina Scott, has a similar experience, doesn't she, with the FDIC?
She does. As a matter of fact, I hired her out of college with the FDIC. Mm. And about 2-3 years ago, I was looking for a chief banking officer and ran into Christina again. She made a great candidate. You got to realize that with 10 years experience with the FDIC, she's been in probably 100 or more banks.
Oh, wow. And
that varied experience of all these different banks across the country is invaluable running a bank. And so she brought that skill set with her and is using it very well.
So we know that Banterra started as a small bank in Ridgway, affectionately known as the popcorn capital of the world, right? In 1975, formerly the Gallatin County State Bank. So can you share a little bit about the origin story of Banterra and how it began?
Well, I was in high school back then, but
we won't tell you what Ben was doing then.
It was a small ag bank. I think it had some challenges. Our chairman, Everett Knight, saw an opportunity to purchase the bank. He was already active in banking. It wasn't far from his hometown of Rosy Clare, and so him with some investors bought the bank during that time frame.
For perspective for listeners, Ridgway's population at the time, other than being the popcorn capital of the world, only had 1,200 people, and our bank started with $11 million in assets. So I personally love this underdog story when it comes to where Banterra started and where it is today. So let's just sort of put a pin in that as we learn more about our bank. Jeff, talk to us about the next growth step that happened in 1979, and you sort of already mentioned that personal connection with West Frankfort.
Correct. In 1979, Banterra became a multi-bank holding company, one of the firsts with the purchase of West Frankfort. Banterra later purchased the bank I worked for and merged it into their West Frankfort branch. Mm-hmm. West Frankfort is still one of our busiest locations in the bank. One of our other original founders, Tom Rabin, lived in that town for a while, and he's still with the bank on our loan committee and board member. Correct.
I actually like that Don's still involved too.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, and I tell you, Don, his office is next to mine in Marion. I get to see him on a regular basis, and he's invaluable. I check in with him. We talk about things that are going on. I might pop in and ask him about a deal I'm working on and ask his opinion. And it's just great to have him around and all of his experience going back for years and years. So it's great. So looking back at the history, after West Frankfort, Banterra really started to gain momentum, acquired banks throughout the region. I know you didn't start until 2002, but can you speak to the rapid growth that our bank has had in Southern Illinois? Maybe speak to the growth and momentum that really
Sure.
started to pick up.
And actually, I was around and was examining Banterra back in this growth period. Mainly it was through acquisitions in the 1980s. They bought banks in Christopher, Marion, North City, Vienna, McLeansboro. And there was an opportunities in the 80s because the economy was struggling. Both ag and oil was having problems, and that created opportunities for Banterra to acquire other banks. Then, of course, after that, we started doing some branches like in Paducah, Carbondale, El Dorado. We also did our in-store branch in Kroger, which was one of the first in the area, and I think probably maybe the only one in the area by a local bank. Everett Knight, our chairman, knew the bank had to grow, and the bank aggressively tried to grow and looked for opportunities to grow through all through the 80s and 90s, and we still are looking today.
Even if we just ended the story here, that's such an inspiring story on a Southern Illinois company, a bank in this case, started in a small town and then eventually had 12 locations so quickly, and then 13 if you count Paducah in 1996. So, I know part of that was acquisition, but what else do you think was really the reason why that rapid growth?
Well, I got to observe that from the outside, obviously, in my other role with the FDIC, but clearly Banterra had strong leadership. They were very innovative, and they were highly motivated, and they were committed to their communities and the markets they served. You got to realize Banterra was one of the first multi-bank holding companies in the state. Banterra was one of the first banks to interstate bank, which means when we went to Paducah, but at that time it was very difficult, and the laws were very difficult to do it within, and we had to buy the Bank of Vienna, then charter, and then branch into Kentucky, and then convert it back to a branch. The laws are much different then, but that was very innovative. Of course, we were very focused on agriculture, still are. Obviously, we started as an agriculture bank. It's still a big part of our business model. And, of course, Southern Illinois has a very large agricultural economy, and that drove the bank. But as a whole, the bank has always been focused on customer quality and customer service, and that's been the attitude of the bank from the very beginning, has drove everything the bank has done.
Okay, so it's 2002. You've just started with Banterra. Completely unrelated, I'm sure, but we hit $1 billion in assets in 2003. maybe
Related.
Well, the bank had just purchased some branches from Fifth Third in 2002, which drove some of that growth.
That helps. Yeah. And so you mentioned Kentucky, but we enter Indiana in 2005. Missouri markets, specialty lending division started in 2007. All within 5 years of your start date. So we're really entering the expansion phase. So can you tell us a little bit about that and why this growth was critical?
Actually, my first assignment at Banterra was to, one, reorganize the bank, and two, find new markets. And Evansville was the first market that I identified from a metrics perspective that I thought was underbanked, but had a strong economy, and it was contiguous to the bank, so it'd be easy to branch into that marketplace. We've been very fortunate to find a really strong team there and good leadership in that market, and nowadays we're a very well-known brand in Evansville, and we've grown to be the sixth largest bank in that community, and it's helped us. We have about $300 million in assets in that market now. Then later we branched into Cape. We had an opportunity to hire some strong leadership out of the Cape market. That's been a very good market for us. We have a very good team down there. Probably the biggest challenge we had to grow was we got into RV lending, indirect RV lending, which we buy loans from dealers throughout the nation. So it's a national program. It's not common for a community bank to be in that business model, and it's a very different mindset. So I think I spent almost a year, maybe more than a year, vetting that business model with other banks, particularly large banks like B of A and U.S. Bank, and we decided to enter that business after we understood it. We had to communicate close. We had to communicate with our regulators so they understood it too, but it's been a great success for us, without a doubt.
Yeah, you've got a great team on that too. I started at Banterra in 2012, and I what I knew about Banterra was it had a lot of branches and it had community support. I had no idea about the specialty lending division, and I don't think most people do. And, you touched on RV and marine, but now we've got machine tool finance and aircraft. I mean, you can buy a plane at Banterra,
I better have a license, though.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. I don't want it. But anyways, I just think that's something that's not very well known.
We did this to diversify the bank's loan portfolio and to grow the bank. One of the things in lending you don't want to be concentrated in the same type of loans or same area geographically, so that was a diversification move and a growth move. It also enabled us, as we grew these specialty markets, it enabled us to grow our support staff locally. We've grown our support staffs in Marion, El Dorado significantly because of the growth nationally in these specialty units. And of course, with that, we're allowed to do more things to support our community, more sponsorships, more charities, all that from growing the bank.
Yeah.
And the special units allowed us to grow the bank significantly.
So that portfolio diversification, you mentioned geographic expansion as well. So I think the machine tool department in particular led us to expanding into the western part of the country, right? Can you speak a little bit about that?
In part, it did. We had been a machine
Among other things.
Among other things. We've been a machine tool since 2009, but we opened a loan production office of machine tool in Tempe, Arizona in 2018. That's because that market has the largest concentration of machine tool companies in the nation. So it made sense to have a marketplace out there. Also, our founder, Everett Knight, he has a second home out there. So we started visiting the market and learning more about the market. And with that, we started our first branch in Scottsdale, Arizona in 2020, right through the pandemic. Great time to start a new location. But we also created a new brand called Sun Canyon Bank. It's a doing business as brand of Banterra. That we've opened a couple branches out in the West Valley of Phoenix. One was within the last month. Very good brand. We also have an electronic version, online version of Sun Canyon Bank that we also actively market. And then most recently, we opened a new branch in Salt Lake City.
I know we enjoyed our recent visits there last week on seeing those markets. And it just gives you great perspective as an employee to see our brand and Scottsdale and Salt Lake City and those kind of things. Do you think that's where our strong growth potential is for Banterra?
Well, I think Banterra is focusing to grow in all its markets, including Southern Illinois and our nearby markets. However, Phoenix, Salt Lake, both are experiencing tremendous population growth. And with population growth comes economic growth and comes opportunities for the bank to grow. And that's why we looked at those markets. They should be a strong source of growth for the next several years. I don't see those markets slowing down. But with that also allows us to continue to grow the base of the bank, grow our employment in Southern Illinois and our support staff, like I said, in Marion, El Dorado. We keep adding staff to support these new markets, and that's good for the area. It
helps with the lending capacity too, right, for all of our regions probably.
It sure does, yes.
Yeah, so even doing business out west can still support the local region here in Southern Illinois by support teams and jobs and opportunities to use those dollars to sponsor local initiatives here.
Yes. Now, the trick to any of these new markets, just like the specialty, is finding the right team and people to lead those teams. And we've been very fortunate. We've got some really high-quality people in these new markets, and they're growing very quickly because of that.
I would agree. They're great to work with.
Mm-hmm. So you mentioned opening the new location during COVID. Let's talk about COVID, which is everyone's favorite subject to talk about.
I prefer not to. Okay.
That brought on a time where the bank, and not only the bank, but people, individuals, communities, countries had to pivot in a lot of ways. Had to rely on more technology, work closely as a team. Obviously, what comes to mind immediately is the efforts we made with supporting things such as the PPP program. We had to be nimble and really adaptable to things like that. Can you speak a little bit about that? Or have you ever experienced anything like that in your time?
I have never experienced anything like the
I don't think any of us have, I guess.
I've been through several banking crises, but there was no rule book here. There was absolutely no rule book. We created special communication processes to meet on a daily basis to deal with the issues we were dealing with, operating in multiple states and multiple counties who all had different rules that we had to follow. It became very complex. And the PPP program was probably one of the worst programs I've ever seen. It was poorly structured by the SBA, and the technology on the SBA end couldn't really handle the program. So there was a lot of challenges, and you as a lender know that we spent a lot of time working with our customers and spending time with our customers getting them through the program. We struggled to get them through the program, but we finally got all our customers through the program. I think we ended up making about $90 million in loans. Interesting, the community banks of the country made 75% of all the PPP loans. The big banks did not participate much at all in the programs. And today, most small business loans in the country are made by community banks.
Well, yeah, and I definitely remember those days very clearly. And it was almost, I understand the intention of the program, but it was almost putting the cart before the horse in some ways. It's like, here's what you do. Okay, how do we do it? We don't know. And so we had to figure that out on the fly, right?
That's right. And our folks did a great job. Matter of fact, we used Teams, which is a new technology that came out of the time, and we had 18 people on the phone at once working each loan, handing off the loans, working the loans, getting them approved, and we did all that in a 24-hour period. But it was chaotic, to say the least.
It sure was. I remember going through it, but in the end, it was really enjoyable to see how everyone came together. We're on the same page. We're all making an effort to figure out how this thing works and how, in the end, we can roll this out to our customers. And there were several customers, many customers. I did quite a few PPP loans myself where the customer says that it helped them keep their doors open, helped them keep their staff employed. We had to get creative in some ways where all the social distancing rules, I know a colleague mentioned they had to close a loan on the tailgate of someone's truck outside in the parking lot one time, and so many stories like that, though. But in the end, although it might have been rolled out in a clunky way, it showed how nimble we were and how we were able to adapt on the fly, and then in the end serve those customers like it was intended.
Agreed. It was very frustrating, very clunky, and it's like we had to design a whole new product and create the ways to deliver it on the fly. And took us a while to figure it out, but we figured it out, and I think it was a success in the end.
You mentioned the community banks during that time, and I just thought of this when you were talking about that. I remember you leading the effort of the other Southern Illinois banks as a call. Okay, here's what we're going through. Let's all be on the same page. How are we going to navigate this for the region? Which I think speaks a lot for how our banks work together, during that time. And I'm in marketing, and for our department, we used to be in the office, but now through Teams, and obviously during COVID, a lot of us were, at home. But really, I think that pushed us forward in some way because we found a lot of efficiencies. You want to speak to that, how we've worked through that?
Banks was designated essential services, which means that we stayed open.
All right.
But we had limitations on how we could provide our service, but we had to stay open. We had to provide service without interruption. Obviously, there's efficiencies from work from home, but and we were quick to do it. I think we had at one time we had like 120 people plus working from home. Obviously, the branches had to stay open.
Yeah.
We worked through the drive-bus, but a lot of our key backroom functions went work from home. We still have a lot of work from home, but work from home requires you to make sure people stay engaged and you monitor what they're doing. And you have to make sure we've got collaboration, which is what you can lose from working from home. But it also allowed us to grow. It allowed us to expand our recruitment efforts. Because of work from home and the technology, we were able to expand and recruit from anywhere in the country. And folks can either work from home or work in some of our branches. During our recent reorganization, we created a role for a new senior risk officer, which I knew we didn't have in the bank. And we were able to recruit an individual from Old National Bank who works from Evansville and from home part of the time. So that has been has been important to us. It's here to stay. It's not going to be as prevalent as it was during the pandemic,
right?
But it has value if it's handled correctly.
Yeah, and that's just one example. I know we've been able to recruit a lot of great people as part of your strategic plan. And just for perspective with the listeners, we have about 500 employees, give or take. So it gives you an idea of what we were navigating.
Well, also, it's critical for backup, like during the ice storm we had recently. Our wire department was working from home. And there was no interruption in service whatsoever. So it's critical a business continuation plan to have work from home capability.
One of those silver linings maybe that in having to adapt during COVID, we were able to learn some things and apply those to future situations such as that recent storm, and we were able to continue operating mostly seamlessly. Mentioned strategic plan. Banterra went through a strategic planning process. We've created one specifically to establish a reorganization of the bank to help us to get to our $5 billion asset goal. So can you talk a little bit about our strategic plan?
Sure. Our strategic plan was a team effort. We had multiple groups of folks represented throughout the bank that worked on various committees on the strategic plan. Our focus always was to how we were going to grow the bank, and we had a goal of $5 billion, which will be a few years yet, but that is a goal, and there's a reason to have goals. The plan focused on our organizational structure, improving technology, new product development, expanding into new markets, employee development, and improving our internal communication. Also, part of the plan was the development of a culture statement. We knew what our culture was, but we've never put it into words. We finally did that.
It's something that's hard to put into words, right? Culture, it's something you can put on a T-shirt or you can put an inspirational poster on the wall. But culture, I think, has something it's substance. It's something you feel when you walk into the building, right? So you have to find a way to encapsulate that.
And we took a unique approach to it. We took and picked 20 representative employees throughout the entire bank, geographically in different departments, and asked them to provide us with what they thought our culture statement should look like. Mm-hmm. Surprisingly, all 20 had basically said the same thing, which was amazing to me. Then we took a group of 8 more to take those 20 and get them into one culture statement. But it was amazing how 20 people from different parts of the bank that had been with the bank a different period of time, because we tried to do that based on people that had been 30 years, 20 years, That's 10 great. Years. Mm-hmm. And they all understood the culture, which, that's important. That's what's driven the organization. So in total, we had 90 items in the strategic plan. We've started about 45 of them. 90 items is a lot to do. Mm-hmm. One of the other big things in the strategic plan was the reorganization of the bank, which took us almost a year to accomplish. We created 20 new positions, more than 20 new positions, including 6 senior roles in the bank. Almost all have been filled internally. Some of those examples are human resources, deposit and loan management, information and planning, technology, and risk management were all new roles added to the bank with our strategic plan. Yeah, you talked about what makes Banterra successful from the beginning mm-hmm. was the culture, and the culture that started the bank is still with the bank today, mm-hmm. which is a service culture. Our team's very dedicated, and that culture drives them. Now, the statement focused on our starts as a rural bank and how we became a recognized national financial institution. That's critical to understand how that change happened. Obviously, we seek to be a leading contributor to the economic success of our communities. If we're successful, our communities are successful. So we want those to go hand in hand. Our values focus on respect, service, integrity, and honesty, all rooted in our small town values that started the bank years ago. Service to customers, business partners, communities, and charities is a strong expectation of the Banterra team. Banterra seeks to be innovative with products and services and to enhance our customer experience. We're dedicating to building value for everybody involved, which is both our customers, our team members, and our shareholders, because creating value is what the business is about.
Wow, I feel like we've covered a lot. So Banterra is 50 years old this year, and we started with one location in a small town, and now we have more than 40 locations in 6 states. We have more than $3 billion in assets. We're hoping for $5 billion as our goal. So I think it's interesting to point out that it took us 28 years to hit $1 billion in assets, and then just 17 years to hit $2 billion, and then amazing to me, 3 years to hit another $1 billion. So that to me, from a marketing standpoint, seems like incredible growth. In addition to our reorganization and the things that you've already talked about, why do these growth milestones matter to the community?
Well, to the community or to the bank? I think they're both. But the industry is changing. It's going to continue to change, and the speed of that change is increasing quickly. As the industry moves forward, we have to become more efficient and deliver our services quicker and more efficiently. Technology is going to drive that. We need the milestones so we can set our goals. If we know that we're going to be $4 billion, $5 billion, what's the resources we have to have in place from the perspective of people, from fixed assets, from technology, and we have to know when we're going to be in those sizes so we can plan for it. So milestones are critical, and milestones drives the organization. I think organizations, our team at Banterra is very excited about the $5 billion, and that's one of our goals. We were excited about $3 billion, and now we've got another goal, and our planning now is driven on that $5 billion mark. So milestones matter, and it gives you a pathway forward.
Well, that growth and success in our first 50 years, it gets me excited as a lender because it allows us to provide financial support to businesses and residents in our area. When we're talking to a business owner, an entrepreneur, or someone just hoping to start a business, comes into the bank and we're able to help them with funding they need for their growth. So I bet you've gotten to know a lot of businesses over the years and find the same fulfillment each time.
I have, and it's surprising when I got to the bank, I wasn't sure what it was to be a banker. I was a regulator, and I was very confused about that, to be honest with you. But one of the first things I got involved with was meeting customers and getting out and meeting businesses and learning how they created their business and what was the culture of that business and what drove that business. That by far has been one of the most enjoyable parts of the job. And I still enjoy that today. I think I've met most of our customers, new customers when we went to Evansville, Indiana. I met many of all those. Now that we were out in Phoenix and we're in Salt Lake, I've met many of those. And that is probably as enjoyable a part of the job you can have, meeting these customers.
One of the most fun things, I think, and I've been on a site visit with you before, is not necessarily when the customer comes into the bank, but when we get to go out to their place of business and let them give us a tour, let us see what they do,
so
right?
Appreciative that a president and CEO or a board member or both go and actually visit. They don't always get that kind of service.
But that's how we learn. That's how we learn how they're going to be successful, and we get comfortable doing business with them. Because at the end of the day, they have a culture. And that culture needs to line up with the bank's culture. And if they serve their community and they treat people with respect and honesty, which is similar to our culture, that we want to do business with them. So it's important to get to know what makes a business tick.
A partnership.
It is a partnership, absolutely.
I've said this to Ben and Jeff Spieth and others at times. I'm a little bit envious that, I know sometimes it can be tough, but from a lending standpoint, you have that direct connection with business where you get to say, okay, we're going to support your dream. We're going to support your expansion or whatever. But from a marketing standpoint, we sort of get that same kind of win because we do so much community support through sponsorships and donation. Can you speak to that and why that's important for Banterra?
Well, one, it's part of the service to the community,
right.
Giving back to the community, making the community stronger. And if we do that, then the business environment that we're in will be stronger and healthier. So it's something we both give to each other and adds value to both the community and to the bank. But obviously, service to the community is what a community bank's about.
Yeah. I know we give over $1 million, and you might, in addition to funding, and I know Ben's been very active too. You can find our team members either volunteering or serving on boards or all those kind of things.
Well, that's right. And that's an expectation. We do give almost $1 million a year. We know how important that is for our communities. We not only support these financially, you'll find our team members involved in the community in various things. You've heard me say this many times, get involved, whether it's school board or charities, chambers or city councils.
Yeah.
I'm not sure I'll recommend that, but I've done that.
Jeff may.
But if you get involved with your community, one, it's a great networking within the community, and it's brand image for the bank. So involvement in the community is critical.
You did mention schools, Jeff. I know we support several schools, colleges, universities. In particular, I think we've established significant brand recognition outside of our footprint for our naming rights for the Banterra Center at Southern Illinois University. Talk to us a little bit about how that partnership began and why it's important to support SIU at this level.
Sure. I'll tell the funny side of it. For several years, they had approached me about the idea, and I told them they were nuts. There's no way in the world we're going to do this. But we finally did reach an agreement back in 2018, 19, somewhere in that area. At that time, Coach Jerry Kill was there. John Eric from Learfield, who's the marketing company for SIU, and I, along with several Banterra folks, spent months trying to hammer out a deal.
Yeah, it was fun.
It wasn't fun, but we got it done. And our board saw it as it came from the support of our bank's board of directors. They saw it was very important for us to support the area's largest employer. They also thought it was important that we support local students. That's kind of why we have the Sluky debit card and checking. Parts of the profits from that goes to support scholarships and athletics at SIU. So Banterra is very supportive of SIU because it's important to Southern Illinois. And of course, I don't know if you noticed or you did know, so you were part of it. We just did a sponsorship with Ring Lake College.
Yeah.
And Ring Lake College's footprint stretches over a large part of our Southern Illinois footprint. So
Yeah.
again, for the same reasons as SIU, we're supporting the area.
And we support CMO and USI and
We
so many.
are very involved in many schools. That's
Yeah.
right.
Well, I think it's important in those types of relationships. We're looking for something that's meaningful. It's meaningful, and it's not just putting our name on the building. It's finding meaning in it with the debit card program, supporting the community. There's an NIL component to the SIU deal.
And
I believe now.
scholarships.
Scholarships.
The key driver.
We want it to be meaningful in a lot of different ways.
Yeah, I think it's one of the reasons that makes celebrating Banterra's 50th anniversary even more special too, because just for listeners in our footprint, we will be doing giveaways and promotions and all kinds of things on social media, and we will just enhance our community support even further. So it's just going to be a great year, and it's going to be fun for our team members.
I agree. It's going to be a great year, and we do have an incredible team and a loyal customer base. Without them, we wouldn't be here today, that's for sure. We've been fortunate to have strong growth throughout the years, well below the national average, and we expect that growth to continue for Banterra for years to come.
Well, this has all been exciting to hear. It's exciting to see where we started, where we've been, why we're growing, where we hope to be, all those kind of things. So, Jeff, we really appreciate you doing our first podcast with us.
Good. I'm glad to be here, and I won't be here for the next 50 years. I will tell you that.
We won't either.
I'm glad to be here, and
Bit might.
I'm looking forward to seeing more of your podcasts, helping you thrive as you go forward. I'm glad you guys are doing it, and I know it takes some effort, but I think in the end it'll be rewarding, both for the folks involved and for
Yeah, we're excited about it.
We are. We certainly hope so.
and for the community.
Yep. And we're not going to let you off the hook just yet, Jeff.
Uh-oh.
Okay. It's time to have some fun.
I hope you
we've
read this
talked about-
question in advance.
I read this question in advance.
All right. We talked about banking quite a bit, but now we're going to have a little fun. We're workshopping a name for this particular segment. We're going to try to do this for all of our guests. We don't really have a name yet, but for now, I just want to ask you, what are you into right now? And by that, I mean it could be a book, movie, TV show, podcast, music that you're into, concert that you've been to.
Or some weird personal fact that
Take that wherever you like.
There's a lot of weird personal facts, I'll tell you.
Go to whichever direction you want to go with that. But Jeff, what are you into right now?
Obviously, my grandkids.
Oh yeah.
And my wife. We always have a good time together. I don't read a lot of fiction books. I know that was one of the points you asked, though I like John Grisham and Tom Clancy, which would be what you would expect. Probably the most interesting book I found over the years that I still refer to in business is Churchill's Darkest Hour.
Oh.
And it really wasn't about the war and Europe. It was about his ability to communicate and his ability to message, and how he spent so much time making sure he had the right words to communicate key things that obviously he changed Europe's view on the war. He changed the United States' view on the war. It was all through his messaging. But the book is excellent because of the use of how he messaged things. Words do matter, and how you communicate them do matter. And that's important when you're leading and directing people.
To read that.
Choice of your words. Movies. Gladiator. Everybody likes Gladiator, right?
You saw the new one?
Right?
You saw the new one?
No, I haven't.
Oh, the original.
Original one, yes.
Yeah.
And of course, you have to like.
Are you not entertained?
Yeah, that's right. And
was
you
a
have to
terrible
like it
impression, by the
Wonderful
way.
Life, because
Oh, I love that. Yeah.
there's a bank examiner in that
That's
movie,
right. Yeah.
Oh, yes.
Yeah. You're Jimmy Stewart.
and I'm Jimmy Stewart.
Yes.
But I was once that bank examiner too.
Yeah.
The same
of course,
building,
he's a typical
building and loan.
Yeah, and he's definitely a bank examiner. He looks like one.
That's hilarious. So if we didn't get any answers from you on that, our fallback was to ask you about Seinfeld.
I think I've seen every episode.
Yeah.
Do you have any favorite episodes of Seinfeld? I know I have one myself. I went back to the marine biologist. It's hard to top that one.
Well, if you've ever rented a car, and I remember when I was with the FDIC and we went out to take over a savings loan in Colorado, we got to the airport and they didn't have a rental car.
But you had a reservation.
But I had a reservation. So you can take the reservation, you just can't, the most important part, you can't hold the reservation.
It's awesome.
And rental car companies are notorious for that.
Sir, I know how a reservation works.
Yeah.
I don't think you do.
Yeah, that's exactly right.
That's great. I love those answers. To our listeners, don't forget to subscribe to Helping You Thrive on your favorite podcast platform or watch the video on Banterra's YouTube channel. Also, please tell others about our podcast and sharing your social media or leaving us a review. Our podcast is recorded at Ethos at the Citadel in Marion, Illinois, and produced by Union Street Arts and Banterra's marketing department. You can find more information on Banterra at our website, banterra.bank. Thanks for joining us today. Banterra Bank, member FDIC.